let's get started. Hold up your papers so I know you got it, or at least one of your papers, so I know that you're ready to do your Venn diagram either now or later. Perfect! Awesome job! So what I did, and I'm going to show you on my other camera now, is I went on Pebble Go and I researched about two people. I researched about Neil Armstrong, which you saw in my video yesterday, and then I chose to do Christopher Columbus. Do you remember Christopher Columbus? Anyone? Christopher Columbus was somebody who we talked a little bit about back in October. So I'm sharing my screen now so that you can see what I have here. But if you need me, you're going to have to press the raise your hand button or something like that. So first I'll just get started by showing you what I did. So I did Neil Armstrong, and I know I read this to you, but I picked Neil Armstrong because I wanted someone who goes in the air to explore. And then I picked somebody who went in a boat to explore, and Christopher Columbus. I'll read you what I wrote. Christopher Columbus was born 569 years ago. That's how long it's been since he was born. He was selling clothes for his father by sailing to other countries, which I never knew that part. He tried to sail somewhere new and discovered our side of the world, like America, South America, and many islands. Even though Native Americans lived there already, Christopher Columbus was the first person from his land, so his country, to discover this part of the world. So that's really important because a lot of our explorers get the credit saying, wow, you were the first person to find this ever. But that's not true because someone was already living there. So that's why I really wanted to make sure you got the truth about Mr. Christopher Columbus. You all should have done one person. Yesterday, you should have done your second. If you didn't get to do that, you are going to go on Pebble Go today and pick your second person before you get to your Venn diagram. Now, everyone take out your blank sheet of paper. I'm going to make this a little cracked so that in case anyone raises their hand, I can still see it. There we go. But you need your piece of paper out. And what you're going to do, I'll do it on my back side, is you're going to draw two big circles. So you can do that in a marker or a pencil, but how I draw big circles, and this is going to help you not make a mistake, is I do one dot at the top, a dot at the bottom, a dot at the corner, and then I do another dot like over here. And then I do that and I connect my circle. I connect the dots. That way you know that you at least made a big enough circle. Is that a circle? Kind of looks like a rhombus, but you know, at least I'm trying. So then I have my other dot, another dot. The cool thing about a Venn diagram is that it's two circles that go on top of each other. And by going on top of each other, they're able to make this middle area. And this is called my Explorer Venn diagram. You can make sure you put your name on it, even though we're not in class. This is mostly for Natalie and Allison's sake, but I want you to put your name on it if you want. But in the middle, you're writing this word, same. In the middle here, where our two circles overlap, which means they touch each other, that's where you're going to write how your explorers are the same. So mine's a little messy because I had marker, but I'm going to write S-A-M-E, same. So anything I write in here is going to be the same. I wrote about Christopher Columbus and I wrote about Neil Armstrong. And so I'm going to put their names one to each circle. So if you have your two people already, you can go ahead and do that with me. If you don't, just watch mine so you can memorize it and do it later. I'm going to put, you can write it on top of or inside, but I want to write it on top of so that I can fit my notes in here. Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong gets this whole circle. This side that's not touching Christopher Columbus's is just Neil Armstrong. Whereas this side is just Christopher Columbus. So when Samarth asked me, what is a Venn diagram? It's where a diagram means a picture. So it's a Venn picture. What does the Venn mean? I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure it means comparing. Comparing means you have two things and you're seeing how they're the same, which means it'll go in the middle, and how they're different, which means it goes out here. Now, I can tell you something super obvious about the same. They're both explorers. You can write the word both if you want, or you can just write what they have in common. But even though they're both explorers, this is what's cool about my pick, is that Neil Armstrong, he was a space explorer. I don't know about you, but I did not hear about Christopher Columbus 500 years ago flying into space. So he's definitely not a space explorer. That wouldn't even come close to here. I would say Christopher Columbus was if he rode in a boat and explored that way, what should I call him? Oh, he explored the sea. So he's a sea explorer. You could keep trying to think of your notes, and if you read what you wrote, you can say, oh, did my other person do that? Maybe, maybe not. Neil Armstrong is a famous astronaut. He was the first man ever on the moon. Look at this word. First. So I don't know about you, but Christopher Columbus wasn't the first one on the moon. So I would write that under just Neil Armstrong. But can anyone tell me, what was the first thing Christopher Columbus did? Because I wrote the word first in my notes about him, too. So I'm writing first man on the moon for Neil Armstrong. Anybody have an idea about Christopher Columbus and would like to share it? Stephen, go ahead. Unmute yourself. What was something just Christopher Columbus was known for? Go ahead.
And he's the only one in his country to discover America.
Yeah, so even though there were Native Americans living there, he was the first one of his whole country to know that place existed. They didn't think the Earth went that far, but the Earth is huge. So thanks, Stephen. First, I'll say he's from Europe, so we'll call him a European. But we could really say man, too. First, European to discover. And you said America, Stephen? Thank you. It wasn't even called America yet. They had no name for it. I would keep going like this until I filled out my entire Venn diagram. And that's actually the only thing you're going to be doing today, unless you don't have your second person yet. But don't forget, you do, of course, have to do a Flipgrid postcard. I love watching your postcards and seeing what books you're reading. There's no Flipgrid for this, just for your reading. Let me think. What's one more thing that they had in common? This is kind of hard because mine are from hundreds of years apart. Oh, they're both men. They're both men. Okay. Man, not much going on for me. Hopefully you have a better one. For those of you who have maybe an astronaut and I don't know, a flight, some like a pilot. I forgot the word for a second. You might have more going on in here. Let's see. Is there a friend who started thinking about their Venn diagram? Robert, how about you? Robert, can you go ahead and unmute yourself? I was talking to Robert about Venn diagrams. What's also, while Robert's unmuting himself, another cool thing is Samarth and I both did Neil Armstrong, but he did somebody other than Christopher Columbus. So you can see there's more ways to compare people. Robert, who are your two people?
Amelia Earhart and Bessie Coleman.
Ooh, can you tell us who Bessie Coleman was?
Bessie Coleman was the first family African American
pilot. First female African American, yes.
She was born January 26,
1892.
1892.
Oh.
In Texas?
Yep, in Texas. And she wanted to do this
Bessie.
one. Do this one. This is a good fact. Over here.
I think.
Okay. Bessie's family was poor.
Bessie's family was poor. After high school,
she went to college for only one semester.
Hey, Robert, what is she known for?
I have another one.
No, I know, but what is Bessie known for?
Flying.
Yep.
Oh, so, and that's the key there. Right, Robert. So not only in Robert's same column, one second, I'm going to jump back. Not only in here would Robert write that they're both explorers, he can write that he has two women. He could write that he has two pilots. They were both flying airplanes because they obviously are different people. They'll have things that they don't have in common. But unlike me, Robert's lucky. He has a bunch of stuff to go in the middle. Thank you, Robert. I know I taught a little bit about Amelia Earhart, so we won't have you repeat that. But would anyone else like to share who their two people were? Allison, go ahead. Nice job, Robert. Nice job, Robert. Who? Say it again.
Tara and John.
Do you have a foreign person?
Olivia.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're getting the feedback from Natalie. Can you repeat that again?
Try again. Tara and John Denny Olivia.
Ooh. So they seem, just from hearing their names, they seem like they're from different countries. Is that true? Ooh, where are they from and what kind of explorers were they?
Where she's from? Kalpana's from India. And
Robert, you gotta do your thing.
Mexico.
Oh, Mexico. Ooh, so are they both from North America?
I don't know.
I couldn't hear who the first person was from. But one was Mexico. Can you tell us what kind of explorers they were?
Uh, they were both astronauts.
Oh, I think you found something that goes in the same column. Nice. Okay, thank you, Allison. Unless, did you have one more thing you were going to tell us? Oh, okay. How about Adi? We haven't heard from Adi. Adi, tell us who you had. I love how much sharing we're doing today.
I had Lewis and Clark and Kalpana Chawla too.
Ooh, I don't know the second person. I knew Lewis and Clark. Yeah, who were they?
Kalpana Chawla was born in March 17 in India.
Ooh.
And it was the same. Allison told the first one, and Kalpana's space shuttle exploded.
His what?
When she was returning.
Her what?
It exploded. This Kalpana, when she was coming back to Earth, she was an astronaut. So when it was coming, one of the pieces of it broke and exploded. She was killed.
So Adi does have a sad but true about explorers. Explorers have a very tough time because they do a lot of dangerous work. So a lot of explorers unfortunately pass away while they're working. Thank you, Adi. Real quick, Dario, do you have a question? Unmute yourself. Go ahead, Dario.
I think I did the same one as Allison.
As Allison?
What one did she do? I only heard one. I only heard one of her.
Oh, the person from Mexico, you mean?
Wait, I only heard John, Danny, Olivia's. And what was the next one?
I don't remember how to say his name, but he was from Mexico.
Okay.
But that's the cool thing, Dario, is that now me and Samarth were connected by one person. You and Allison are connected by one person. I'm sure if whoa, I just knocked over my camera. I'm sure if I unmuted all of you, you would probably have some explorers in common. I mean, we all read about Lewis and Clark, and that's one that Adi did. So that's pretty cool, Dario, that you two have that in common. I wonder what your Venn diagrams would look like, having some similar person. Because Samarth and I have one person in common, but our Venn diagrams could look totally different. So I would like to hear from one more person. How about Malvina? We haven't heard much from you, so you can go ahead. My friends, if you have a question for me, I'll have you go after Malvina shares. But pretty much we're going to hear Malvina, and then I'll show you my alphabetical order, but then you're able to go and work on your Venn diagram, okay? Go ahead, Malvina.
Kalpana Chawla was born on March 17, 1962 in India. She was a space explorer. She was the first woman to go in space.
Ooh. Malvina, Adi, you guys have something in common. Oh, look at that portrait. I'm telling you, Miss Dania should be here right now to see all your awesome drawings. Who else did you do, Malvina?
Christopher Columbus.
Oh, like me. Malvina and I both did an astronaut and a sea explorer. See how cool it is to see all of our different Venn diagrams? It's like a web. I love it. Thanks, Malvina.
You're welcome.
Oh, and I love she has her writing journal. That's a good idea to use your writing journal. So, my friends, before we close out, you can stay in the chat if you do have questions for me. But let me show you real quick my alphabetical order. So your Venn diagram hopefully will look something like this, but hopefully better circles. Here's some better circles. I want you to send me a picture of this later, as well as your note pages, so that if I didn't get to hear you share, we can still see who you did. But for those of you who are curious, here's our alphabetical order for our words of the week. I'm wondering, because on Monday we're going to do our words of the week again, maybe I can call on some kids to do it and we'll do it live instead of waiting to see the results on Friday. So it went about, by, car, could. That one was a little difficult because there was 2 C's. Don't, our contraction, maybe, sure, and there. So this there is the pointy one. Oh, hey, over there is our school. That's this there. And BY is by Miss Remitz, not your waving goodbye. That's BYE. So if you want to type bye to us today in the chat, try putting the E on. Then for our alphabetical order of long E, we had B, eat, feet, keep. So that was fun because there's the double E. Me, mean. Now, if you put mean first before me, that's okay. I personally like to say that once there is no letter, there's nothing there, though of course X is a letter, but once there's no more letters, that one will go first, even though this one starts with an A. But if you wanted to put mean first, that's okay. Read, see, these, as in these words, and tree. Make sure you didn't write an H in there, because if you did, then it would be the number 3. So those are our words. I'll leave them up for a second. But my friends, what you're going to do now is go work on your Venn diagram and send me a flip grid postcard of the books you read this week. Once you've done all of that, you can play in today's game show with our contestants, Smokey and Red Fire. They're coming back for today's game show. It's going to be a lot of fun. You will make your house a little bit messy, so I apologize to any parents nearby that this scavenger hunt's going to get a little intense. So I'm going to stop presenting, and my friends, if you need me, you can stay in the chat or in the video to ask a question, but otherwise you can unmute yourselves and say bye. Bye, my friends. Have an awesome Friday if I don't see you.
Bye.